All right, let's get this thing started today. And as expected, and I'm glad I spent a little time talking about it yesterday because if you listen to our segment on the redistricting, that's such a difficult word to say. I'm just going to call it map wars because that's where we are right now with the midterm elections as it relates to congressional districts. But of course, by now you've heard the news. The Supreme Court, in a landmark ruling today, 6-3, threw out a very racist scheme that we were using to draw congressional districts in this country. It was just inappropriate and has been, but the left has used it effectively. They're smart, they find their advantages and they use them. And so for a long time, states have been sued into federal court, particularly the southern states, and forced to redraw their boundaries. And on one hand, the Constitution says you can't use race as a determinant, but another interpretation of the Voting Rights Act said that you had to at least have certain minority representation. So states went about the business of drawing these crazy districts. Now, that's one part of the story. The other are these just plain old redistricting wars between some of the larger states. Texas has now done it and been upheld by the Supreme Court. Virginia just did a very radical map and is likely, some believe, I don't know enough about the Virginia Supreme Court, but the Virginia map may get tossed out even this week. And then we have today's ruling, what it means. So I'm going to try to, without the benefit of really being able to show you a lot of maps, I know we got the cameras here on the show, but without that benefit, I think this is a good test. Let me say it to you this way. If you can describe where a congressional district is on the radio, then you probably have a good district. You have a proper district. If you need a spider chart and you draw something that looks like a lobster just to include certain people, and by the way, exclude certain people from a district just for the benefit of one party, well, then that's not a proper map. So let me just keep walking you through and telling you what is probably going to happen here in Alabama. As we talked about yesterday, I picked up on some information this weekend of how some maps had already been drawn in case this ruling were to go as it was believed it was going to go. We went through this yesterday. What's funny to me is watching some of these Democrat pundits and others act shocked and surprised. I guess they live in such a bubble, they didn't realize the court was going to come with this ruling. And for weeks now, it's been known that Alito was going to write the majority opinion, which means he was in the majority, which means we probably knew which way the vote was going to go. But I guess they ignored that because what? I watched them meltdown on CNN. Maybe they're just doing it for their tiny little audience that they've got left. They've just got a couple of people that really need to go see their therapist that still watch those networks. And maybe they had to feign shock to be able to play that off. But most reasonable people that have been following this case and have seen cases like this for decades now understood where this was headed. And of course, the ruling was altogether just and proper. So it was 6-3, and what it generally means is states that were covered under the auspices of the Voting Rights Act, primarily in the South, particularly Louisiana, because it's the state where the case was held, or was that was the test case, was in Louisiana. They had two racially gerrymandered Democrat districts. And man, have you ever seen the map of that district that was in question? One of the districts, it looks like a salamander. It goes from one side to the other in this odd shape, and it makes no sense. These people, here's the deal about geography. Forget race, because it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about where you live and being represented in your area by a person in Congress that can represent your area, black, white, all of us. And so when you draw districts properly, people know where they live, and you kind of can know who your congressman is. But if you got lines drawn around whole neighborhoods just to pull certain people in, it gets very confusing. It creates a lot of noise in who's represented anyway. Some of you don't know where your congressional districts go, but some of you know who your congressperson is. So the bottom line for Alabama is, yes, we're going to redraw, and it's the end of these racially gerrymandered districts here in the state of Alabama, particularly the 7th, which was that way for years. It's been held by a series of representatives that were all black Democrats, because that's the way the Democrats wanted to draw it and play it. And it's been a disservice, by the way. I can get into the politics of it, but I would argue to you this is going to be better representation for black voters in our state. You've got more voice in more districts where even some of these Republican leaning districts still have to pay attention to the black vote. The way it was drawn before, these heavily packed Republican districts could just ignore it. Black people get packed into one single district where you've got input with one single congressperson who's largely been ineffective. Earl Hilliard, Terry Sewell, none of the people, Artur Davis, the people that have held that district have not done a damn thing for those people in that district. They just haven't. I've watched it for 30 years. It has not benefited the people over in West Alabama and down along the Black Belt. It just hasn't. It might make some people feel good to have a representative that maybe looks like you in the mirror, but it's not effective. It's not been good. And so having districts where if you live in Birmingham, you know who your congressman is. If you live in Montgomery, you know who your congressperson is, instead of chopping up cities and doing this kind of stuff. In other words, let's take a look, again, by the benefit of radio, without me being able to show you the map that I published this morning. I put a map out this morning that has been floating around for a couple of days around the state. This may not be the final map, but it's the map the Republicans are considering. What they'll do is call a special session. We tried to walk through this yesterday. I was a little confused as to how when it would happen is everything, because what happens is all these candidates that are qualified for the current districts. For example, we had Gary Palmer in here, and he's got an opponent, I think, or two. Everybody's got to requalify depending on where they live if this new map gets passed. And it's up to the governor to call a session, which I expect she's going to do. If she doesn't do this by tomorrow, we're losing time. And get the legislature back down there. There are some time restraints on how quickly you can get them into session, and then they have to make arrangements to be down there, run through all these maps and approve the maps. And then, of course, the maps will be challenged, but most of that's going to get slapped down. And then we got to get off to the actual race once the maps are finalized, because people got to know where to qualify. So we're kind of starting over with the primary maps here in Alabama. So we have two districts. One was just forced on the state by, again, a lawsuit. Eric Holder and his type have been running around filing suits against states to help the Democrat Party build more seats using race as a standard. And they won in those suits in the lower courts and eventually got Alabama's map redrawn. So we wound up picking up a second Democrat seat in the state. All that's over. And to do that, they had to split up the Mobile-Baldwin area. It makes no sense. The new map, the one that's being proposed right now, and the one I put up on X, some of y'all have seen it floating around, does create 7 Republican. Well, we say it creates 7 Republican districts. They lean Republican heavily, but it's not a guarantee. If you elect an idiot, or if you don't have a proper candidate, or some anomalies happen, just like when Doug Fluke wound up in the Senate, things can happen. So none of these are locks. You still got to go out and run and campaign and earn the seat. But when you look at the map makes sense. It just like in Louisiana, if we go to proper maps, or you're going to see a map, I'll pull this thing up and try to describe it to you. If I look at Mike Rogers' district, that's a district where I grew up and where I worked. It's East Alabama. I can tell you in 3 words, East Central Alabama, you know where his district is. Before we had fingered these things, this Shamari Figures district went from Mobile to Montgomery. I mean, and now you look at District 2, it's the Wiregrass. If you know Alabama, you know exactly where that is. It's Southeast Alabama. If you look at the way they're going to draw District 1 in this proposed map, it's Mobile, Baldwin, and the counties north of it. It's Southwest Alabama. Do you feel where I'm going? Adderholt, according to this proposed map, probably gets changed the most. His district would just be mostly West Alabama, Central and North West Alabama. How easy is that? The 7th district, what used to be the minority district, that'll just be Birmingham up to Coleman over to Gadsden, just very dead. It's like you draw a bullseye in the state of Alabama, boom, right there around Birmingham, from the city up to those counties to the north. It's another district, 7th district. You know where it is. I could describe these districts to you in a way where you could draw the lines if you were blindfolded. And to me, that's always should have been the test. The 5th district, it's northeast Alabama. It's just the northeast corner of the state. Dale Strong's currently the incumbent there. Most of these candidates live in these districts already. In other words, Palmer lives in the district where they have drawn the 6th district. It does split the Birmingham Metro, but you've got a northern representative and a southern representative. The line kind of goes along Shelby County and it goes down to around close to North Montgomery. It's very much, these are 2 central Alabama districts. The point being, you can't really ever draw perfect shapes because of where people live, and county lines are irrelevant. It's really more about cities and towns, and when you talk about the economics of these districts. So again, tossing out this ridiculous race standard, the bottom line is, and most people understand this, this is true of DEI and every other program that we try to use. You cannot make up for past discrimination with current discrimination. You just can't do it. You'll never do it. The fundamentals have to be there for anybody that wants to advance in politics, on a job site. You got to start earning these positions, and we can't fake this anymore. It's poisonous, it's divisive, and it's unconstitutional. It's, and on the face of it, it's bigotry. But somehow we have been conditioned to just accept that, well, we have to do this. We don't. The court said that. They even talked about the exact language in the Voter Rights Act. It clearly says, what we've done is flip it on its head. It was written to prevent people from using race to discriminate against people in these districts. In those days, people would intentionally draw people out to protect black voters from getting elected. It was an offensive move, and now that we flip it on its head, you draw it on purpose for that way, and both are wrong. They're 2 sides of the same coin. We have to be colorblind and judge things on their merit and go by more objective standards. And so, for example, let me just describe this. I know I sound like a nerd, but I'm all into this, and I used to participate in districting cases. I used to do research and help with these kind of things when we draw House and Senate maps here in the state. But the congressional maps are what's front and center right now. And I know I got a question from somebody today. So how is this going to affect the Senate? And it's sad to me that I have to spend 4 hours a day sometimes correcting people's public education, but senators are elected by states. We don't have district lines to argue about. It's just the state. And we all have the same number of senators. We all got 2 senators, and none of that's affected. This is all about Congress. It's all about the House of Representatives. So when you look at representation, a lot of what Congress people have to do are look out for certain economies in the areas that they're from. So if you're from a certain part of the country, you know, your issues, if you're from out in Nebraska, you're all about agriculture and corn and what they do. Here in Alabama, you've got the 2nd district. That's the Wiregrass. That's a farm-oriented rural district. So you know clearly what their issues are. You go to the 5th district, and that's Redstone and the Space Center and all of that high-tech stuff. It's completely different objectives of the Congress people to look out for the interest of the economies back home. When you draw lines properly, then the congressman clearly knows their mandate and what their mission is and can be more focused. Anyway, maybe I'm sounding too rational, but we had gotten off into some very irrational stuff. Now let's just talk about the fun part of it. We've dorked out on maps for just a minute, or at least I have. Let's talk about what happens going forward. The numbers are all over the place, but the reasonable number, if all the southern states were to move quickly and get this done before the midterms, that would potentially benefit the Republicans. That number is a pickup of 12 seats after today's ruling. I've been telling y'all, and I told you yesterday that I think 2 days ago is when this light bulb went off in my head. I believe the Virginia panic, which is what they just did with that referendum, it was absurd on its face, and they shoved it through in the craziest way possible. And if it gets overturned, all that's moot. But they did that because they saw this ruling coming. I think Obama and his team, the people that were rushing through Virginia, are trying to play catch up now because they saw there were going to be net loss of 12. They are already struggling in polling all around the country. Heck, you could run it with a Republican governor of California after this midterm election. So a lot of things are happening out there in the country that they're well aware of, and they were trying to get ahead of it. By their best opportunity to do pickups to negate some of this would be to shove those maps through in Virginia. But again, my standard for what I think is reasonable is you couldn't describe those districts that they just passed in Virginia. There's a map. There's a map of Illinois for them to try to draw all the Republicans out of Illinois, and it looks like an earthquake chart. It's the weirdest looking. These districts look like everything has to connect to Chicago so they can dump Democrats from Chicago down into rural Illinois, and that's not contiguous. It makes no sense. But that's the problem for the Democrats. They can't rig the system without really doing absurd stuff and having people in districts that don't represent their interest. But they're probably going to try to do it in states where they have control. And they'll run up against constitutional issues by doing it. In Virginia, the biggest argument about what they did last week is process. They didn't follow the process. And the courts may rule that they didn't and throw the whole thing out. And then we're back to where we were in Virginia with a 6-5 split, Democrats having the advantage. It's going to be fun. I'm going to call it Map Wars, and we'll keep up with it day to day. Now, on that front, let me see if I tell you what, let me take a break because I've got a delicious piece of sound to share with you about what they just did in Florida. Florida was already ahead of this. Naturally, they've got a much more aggressive governor down there. They were already in session. They're in session right now drawing their new maps. And Virginia picked a fight, and Timu Obama said, dared them. And so here we go. So let's do this break. We'll come back and I'll share the sound for you. What happened on the floor of the House in Florida today is they were trying, and they did. It's during the actual vote. This is fun stuff. Lonnie's Furniture Company bringing you the show today. Y'all go pick something out beautiful for your home. They're running a sale. They don't do a whole lot of sales, and they don't have to. And I'm telling you why they don't have to, because the quality's there. When you're selling the best stuff, you don't have to run sales. People want to come to your store. And then when your prices are already fair all year long, all the time, that's always a good thing too. So anytime you go to Lania's, you're going to find value. But Reggie reached out yesterday and said, look, we're trying to come up with something catchy to do for our 92nd anniversary to promote how long we've been around. So we're going to knock $92 off for every $1,000 you spend. If you round off, that's about a 10% discount. So y'all go take them up on it. Go shop. Go look at the beautiful things they have there. Get to know them. From time to time, you just need a certain piece, or you're not sure what you want. You need some ideas and you want to be inspired. You can do that in a store that's this big and this kind of quality stuff. They're right off exit 280 on I-65 in the little town of Kimberly, Alabama. I was about to kid around and tell you which district they're in. I think they're going to be, they would be in the new 7th district in North Jefferson County. It's Lanius Furniture Company, Launius. That's how you spell it if you want to go online and look at some of the brands. Y'all go see them this weekend, right off exit 280, Kimberly, Alabama. LaniusFurnitureCompany.com. Save that $92. Back in a minute. All right, y'all get back in here. This is it's gonna be a fun segment. As we just found out, right as we were going to the break, all this was going down while I was giving you the explanation of where we're going with our Alabama districts. But Florida's Senate now has passed the new Florida map, and the Democrats are down to 4 representatives in the state of Florida. Y'all, they wanted to pick this fight. There'll be other Democrat states to attempt things too. Florida's following their process. They call a session. The governor has already vetoed previous maps, and so they were in this debate before the Supreme Court ruling, but they just did it. The Senate, the House had already confirmed, and now the Senate just confirmed it. You know, DeSantis will sign it, and that is a +4 pickup. That is before any of the redistricting that might have taken place with the other southern states. One of the Democrat ladies decided she was above the rules of the chamber. She is a Democrat down in Florida, and she got a bullhorn. What is it with Democrats and bullhorns? These bastards love bullhorns. Anyway, she took to the floor and decided to make a fool out of herself as the vote was going down in the House.
Constitution. It is. It's a violation of the Constitution. I'm out of order, but y'all are doing illegal.
Representative Persons Mullica has waived closed. The question now recurs on final passage
She's yelling.
of HB 1D. The clerk will unlock the
In a
machine
pink-
and the
a
members
pink
will proceed to
bullhorn.
vote.
Her
Have
outfit
all
matches
members
the bullhorn,
voted?
by the way.
Have all members voted? The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
83 yeas, 28 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes. Read the next bill.
None on the desk, Mr. Speaker.
Yep. So that was history being made in the state of Florida despite this woman's very obnoxious protestations. The thing is, Supreme Court ruling came down while she was yelling about something being unconstitutional. The Supreme Court just ruled on what was unconstitutional. It's over for that scheme in the country, and that's better for the country. Back here in just a minute. All right, it's 2:34, man. Already after it here on this Wednesday. Boy, we got some rain last night, didn't we? A little bit more tonight for some of you, and then another chance of some more rain coming through here on Friday. I think we've had right around Birmingham just about 3.5 inches, but no real flooding problems last night, and it looks like everything stayed below the threat level. So that was very, very beneficial. Rivers will be up. All that's good. Hey, y'all, Axiom Tax Resolution Group bringing you the show tonight. 205tax.com, 205tax.com. Perry's just been helping people in this audience for years and years unwind trouble with the IRS, and it can come unexpectedly. You'll get a letter in the mail. By the way, they're not going to call you. Those are scams. They're not going to send you a text and threaten you, but they will send you a formal letter and begin a process to come after you if they think you owe money and you're trying to dodge. And that's the key. If you're not dodging and if you're trying to work with them, they're a lot more agreeable. In fact, they have to back off. The laws require that when you're making an earnest effort to get your debts settled. And Perry Cronin knows how that process very well, probably better, and I'm not kidding, better than anybody in this country. We've got a real expert right here in Alabama. And he can help you not only assert your rights so that you can stop the harassment, but to figure out the program that best suits you to get settled on that outstanding debt. And it's confusing. He's not going to look down his nose at you and judge you or scold you for getting sideways with these folks. It's too easily done. He's seen some very, very sophisticated clients suddenly owe a lot more money than they would have expected. And he can get it settled for you and get that amount down. With the Fresh Start Initiative alone, you could very well get it down almost to 80%. So let Perry help. Y'all sit down face to face. Perry Cronin, Axiom Tax Resolution Group, 205tax.com. 205tax.com. That's how you reach them. The phone number, if you want it, it's right there on the website, is 872-1100. Y'all get to work during this extension time. If you had to file an extension to try to get all this stuff figured out, let him help you figure it out and get that debt released and sleep better at night. Perry Cronin, Axiom Tax Resolution Group. All right, I think I'm going to stick with the district thing for a minute because a lot's going on with it all of a sudden. A lot of reaction to the court ruling and the other movements in the country. What surprised me today is Trump had the astronauts that just went around the moon in the Artemis 2 mission. He had them there in the Oval Office. It was a cool moment. They had their astronaut jackets on, and he was very loose, very jovial today. But then reporters got a chance to ask questions. They asked about a lot of stuff. But they asked about this districting ruling, and Trump didn't know about it yet. And that's really not surprising when presidents are booked with back-to-back things all morning. The ruling, I think, had been out about 2 hours. The president's got a lot going on right now, and this probably isn't top of mind. But naturally, he had a disposition about it. Let's take a listen to how that sounded.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to go back to the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act. I know you said you haven't seen it.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for
A win for Republicans.
I love it.
Absolutely. But my question,
This is a very good. We can end this news conference. I want to read it.
my question for you, Mr. President.
All right, so that was pretty much it. He just looked like he was caught off guard by he didn't know the vote split, but he reacted after he understood which way the ruling went, the way you would expect him to react. Now we've got so many aspects of this story, and I'm happy to take your questions as we move forward. It's going to be a little bit confusing for a few days. Our legislature's got to meet. And I'd never finished my thoughts on the process going forward from there. Then the parties have to requalify their candidates. And if they're going to go by their own bylaws and the way we do primaries, it's like we get a brand new primary because the districts are different. That will generate new candidates. There's one guy that was in the Senate race for a minute. He dropped out, even though ironically his name was still going to be on the ballot. This Morgan Murphy was going to be on the ballot for Senate, even though he had dropped out. And his intent is if these districts change, this guy's going to jump into one of the Senate races. The Senate races are more attractive and competitive for Republicans now that if they would be redrawn. I'm going to assume they get drawn somewhere close to this map that's out there floating around. It'll get tweaked, and there'll be a lot of fits and starts between now and then. But if they've got a slick process, and they know how to ram stuff through down there, they do it all the time when they want to raise our taxes. But if they run these districts, so you're going to have a whole different slate of candidates to consider. There are people that live in West Alabama. If you're a Republican, you had no hope of winning in that district because, it was drawn against you. that district has always discriminated against Republican voters. I'm not even going to say white voters, but because race was used, it gave the Democrats an advantage. And so now that it would potentially be redrawn and completely, that number would move all the way over to north central Alabama. You'll have a bunch of Republicans that live all over that part of the state that now have a chance to serve in Congress. And that may be some people listening to me right now. I was looking at the Alabama map thinking, now, if this were to pass, how many districts does our coverage area touch? And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 of the 7 districts we cover. And you could argue 6 of them, but we'll keep watching the developments on that. So we'll have new lines, which means a new qualifying, which means a whole new primary. And then we haven't cast any votes yet. It's going to be a headache for some of these. Here's an interesting quirk. When the Morgan Murphy candidate, and he's a good friend of some friends of mine, I don't personally know him, but when he was in as a Senate candidate, I think he used to be a staffer for somebody somewhere. When he was in as a Senate candidate and decided to withdraw, there were some probate judges that said they couldn't take his name off the ballot because they'd already started printing their ballots. Well, guess what? Guess what? I sound like Tiger King right now. You remember that show? Tiger King go, guess what? They're going to redraw all of it. They're going to have to redo all of these ballots. And what I don't know is if there's some kind of split where we would go ahead and run the normal Republican primary with the candidates that are into it with the statewide races. And there are other races all over the state. I mean, we've got all these races up right now. Would they go ahead and let those run, and then we'll do a separate House and Senate primary? I don't know. We'll wait and see what is decided, what the governor decides to do, or how quickly they can move. It's going to also, like I said, their machine has to stop moving. All the gears have to get oiled, and we have to go in a different direction. So some people will call it chaos, but I think it's completely doable. It's only the end of April. They could have this done by mid-May. You push the primary off for another 6 weeks into the summer, which in some of these races we would have been in runoffs anyway. So it's gonna be something to see. Now, Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee was one of the first out this morning for her state, demanding that they redraw particularly the western part of Tennessee. Memphis is carved up in a very bastardized kind of way to give the benefit to Democrats, so they need to rectify that. Louisiana clearly was all the way to the Supreme Court. They're going to redraw. Mississippi will go completely red. They'll have 4 Republican districts. Some of those maps have been worked out. Florida just voted. Florida just pushed their map through the Senate just minutes ago. DeSantis will probably sign that thing by this afternoon, and that's one of the several southern states that may get involved in this. What we don't know is states that can go wishy-washy, like North Carolina could get weird and decide not to fool around with changing their plan. I would imagine Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and maybe Georgia is able to pull this off. Georgia's also become very weird. Georgia, like Alabama, as far as Democrats go, the concentration of Democrats in Georgia is all in the Atlanta area, a little bit around Savannah, but it's mostly in Atlanta. But they have a particularly drawn minority district down in southwest Georgia that goes up close to, I think it goes up close to Macon, gets a lot of Macon in there. So it'd be quite plausible that they would want to redraw that. And then most of the representation, excuse me, for the Democrat Party is going to come from the Atlanta area over in that state. So there's a lot to see. So Tennessee's off to the races. We think that's just a U.S. senator calling for it. Now here in Alabama, immediately most of the Republican politicians got on the bandwagon pretty quick, including Jay Mitchell. I just saw a post from X that Jay Mitchell has already called. I think he put a statement out. I was trying to find it real quick. He put a statement out as well. Here's what Mitchell says. Again, he's running for attorney general. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Jay's been involved in some of these legal matters when it comes to redistricting cases. For some reason, I have a vague memory of him being in the room in the past in some of the cases I was part of years ago in trying to help draw or to, prepare the legal cases. He says every state except Alabama has won their redistricting cases, and it's critical that we respond to the Democrats drawing maps that allow Alabama to send Republicans to Congress. As AG, I'll make sure ours hold up in court. He says, finally hold up in court. Now, if y'all understand the nature of his race, that's a swipe at his opponent. I would guess Catherine Robinson. Those two are really getting at it. There's a very nasty ad out right now against Mitchell. And I guess I'll dig into that just for a second, too, while we're heading toward the mid-break. Let me finish up my thought on the state, though. Catherine Robinson works for the AG office, and it's the AG's office that lost the court case that led to the Southwest District being drawn that Shamari Figures now currently holds. And he didn't get much time in Congress, did he? He's going to be done. Now, this kid he's young. He's pretty vibrant. He's good on the stump. He may try to run. I mean, he may have a shot. I don't know what the composition is going to be. But just philosophically, and then I'll get into the AG race. The Democrats, while they're howling today and feeling put upon, all they did was lose a cheat code. They lost a mechanism that and I'm giving them credit, they were smart about using this hustle, legally and otherwise, to carve out a firewall of districts, even in red states, again, based on race, unconstitutionally based on race. But forget the racial issue. This was a tactical effort on the part of Democrats to gain advantage in the Congress. And they never miss an opportunity to gain advantage. They're smart that way. They fight for what they try to do. Let me give you an example. While they're howling about maybe Florida today, the crazy lady with the bullhorn screaming about Florida, in New England, they vote about 40% Republican, but you'd never know it if you looked at the red-blue map for New England, because they've drawn their districts in such a way that gives Democrats the advantages because they control everything in those states. So Republican voters really never get represented in that part of the country. Similarly, Alabama votes oppositely, and you would expect the same standard to be able to apply here in terms of how the districts are being drawn. But they don't miss. For years, they've come up with all these schemes to be able to get every advantage they could, and now they can't use this tool. If anything, it's just a tool that they use to get head count, and they've now lost that tool. They're losing some other fundamental things, and I don't know that there's anybody looking at the big picture on this, but Act Blue is under investigation. They are getting foreign money through a money laundering scheme that gets Chinese money and other probably drug cartel money into our system through this Act Blue organization that does classic money laundering. They disintegrate the funding, pretend that it's small donor funding. They create fake straw donors. They'll steal people's identities just to give $25 checks to candidates in multitude so that it's harder to trace. There are too many trails to go down. And those people never knew they donated. That's been caught all over the country. They're under investigation. Some of their activities stopped, but they absolutely have used that to cheat in previous elections. Mail-in voting, drop boxes, everybody voting for a month. All of these are engineered to keep the Democrats in power. They can't win majorities. They can't in this country head-to-head straight up in a fair contest. They can't do it. Properly drawn districts that represent geographical areas that make sense. Same day voting where we all just do our civic duty, quit making freaking excuses for why you can't vote and that you're too stupid to go get an ID. Nobody's buying that. Show an ID, show up in person, do it on paper so that it can't be manipulated by computer technology. We count them that day. We finish voting that day. We count them that night, and then we look at the results. They can't do that. So they keep looking for angles, and all of that's being confronted right now. It's about time because the country's losing faith in the process. You've got to have some semblance of fairness in the way we select who represents us. And the things Virginia just did, and you can say it's unfair what they're doing in Florida, but you could also make the same case in the northeast part of the state. But all this stuff's going to get sorted out in the next few weeks, and it's going to be I kind of enjoy it. I never enjoyed working to look into these things and to develop the cases years ago to try to prove that these districts were unfair or unwarranted, or we've constantly had court battles about every single line. There's some screwy stuff that always happens when you start drawing maps, but it does become important. Now, the other advantage the Democrats are going to lose is the head count situation. Let's talk about that. Right now, congressional representation is apportioned by population. And we've got another ruling before the Supreme Court. I don't think that's going to go the proper way about birthright citizenship and citizens being the only people that can vote. The Democrats get the advantage of the head count creating more. They boost their population with illegal immigration and then maintain seats in Congress based on that population. And by the way, the Electoral College. But when we get to the 2030 census, states like California, which are reliably Democrat, are going to lose a lot of those, depending on how these court rulings go too, and the way we count heads. They're going to lose a lot of that representation just to population shifts because people are fleeing Democrats. They're fleeing their bad policies and their broke nature and their bad ideas. But they won't blame themselves for voting for these people. They'll just move to Texas and keep voting for Democrats. But yet, when it counts, when it's their money on the line, their paychecks, their opportunity, their prosperity, they'll get up and move. When the house prices get too high because the same Democrats run them completely out of home ownership in a state like California, they get up and move to Texas, but keep their values because they want to be smug and above everybody, and they wouldn't possibly vote for these knuckle-dragging Republicans. It's funny how the shift is happening. But we've got population shifts. We've got court rulings to deal with. We got these new districts to deal with. They're losing advantages every single day in the way they rig Congress. So we'll keep following it. It's going to be a crazy year. I kind of like it. I got the popcorn out. I'm ready for it. All of it. I mean, we need this. We need to protect this country. Birmingham Broker bringing you the show tonight. BHAMBroker.com. BHAMBroker.com. That's Craig and Keith and all those guys in downtown Birmingham. Let them sell your ride for you. They'll get you more money. They do all the work. I don't need to tell you anything else, do I? Seriously. They could save you thousands by retailing that car. And the reason a lot of us don't go and try to sell our own cars is because it sucks. You got to prep that thing. You got to figure out what it was worth. You got to market it. Then you got to meet yahoos and let people look at it and try to argue with you about it. And then if you do strike a deal with them, you got to do the paperwork, make sure all that's correct. And it's a laborious process. And that's why a lot of us will go to dealers and just hand it to them. Because we're in love with the new car and you're like, here, you don't even look at your old car anymore. You're just like, there's French fries under the seat, take the keys. And then you drive off in your new one and you're completely screwed in that process. Don't do that. Birmingham Broker will sell that ride, get you top dollar, get you a fat check, and then you're off to the new car. Works for everybody. They've helped people for years. Y'all, it is a seller's market right now. Still, there are a lot of buyers out there. The inventory's been screwed up really since COVID. New cars are super expensive, so there's a lot of opportunity in the pre-owned market to sell your ride. Let them figure it out for you. Craig and Keith, great guys down there. BHAMBroker.com. BHAMBroker.com. Back here in a minute. All right, it's 2:56. Leland Live. Danny Knowles, of course, with the Knowles Group, bringing you the show this hour. Y'all go reach out to Danny if you want some advice, if you want counsel, if you want guidance, if you want a lot of work to be done on your behalf to make your money work for you one day. You know, I was reading an analysis today of trying to prepare for retirement, and if you're only getting a sort of a 4% return, you're not even keeping up. You can still be losing money because of just inflation alone. Taxation, inflation. If you're not aggressively ahead of all that, you're going backwards. Let them explain it to you. They're a lot smarter than me about this stuff, and having the proper placement. And really, I'm talking to a lot of you that already have control of your retirement funds, and you're in retirement. Your money's paying you. If you want a pay raise, there's a whole lot better way to do it than some of the strategies some people employ. I just know Danny has worked in this his whole life. Super successful, just incredibly successful. He and I, we grew up without a whole lot in the same little town, and he's just become a great success. And I'm proud of what he's done. He's got this wonderful family. His sons work with him into practice there, and those guys are all just so polite and smart with how to do what they do. So reach out to him, see if it's a fit. I'm making an introduction to an old friend that I know knows his stuff, but it's up to you to decide if y'all want to work together, and let him find a way to help you also grow your wealth, make some money, retire a little more comfortably than maybe another plan. And don't go to the casino and think you're going to do it yourself with your own instincts. People really get wiped out that way. It's the KnowlesGroup.com, N-O-L-E-S, the KnowlesGroup.com. All right, I just noticed during the breaks, I'm still taking incoming on this Supreme Court ruling, because you got all these, particularly the southern states, making decisions. The Georgia Republican Party just put a statement out applauding the ruling naturally, but calling on what they call it over in Georgia is their General Assembly. They're calling on the General Assembly to convene a special session as soon as practically possible. I'm going to read you here from their statement: to redraw Georgia's congressional, their state house, and their state Senate districts. So I don't know to what extent Georgia used race in those districts, but in some cases that's also applicable here in Alabama. It could be that gets involved as well. I just know that I've been focused primarily on the congressional maps, and we'll see how it works out here. You're going to see this. This will be all the talk for the next couple of weeks. And the truth is, just like here in Alabama, when I was getting some information last Friday on how our map was looking, people have been working in anticipation of this ruling, which was smart. Now it's just a matter of actually going through the motions and doing it. So somebody wake Kay Ivey up. I think nap should be over by 3 o'clock. Let's see if we can get a call for a special session out of that office. We'll wait.